Dr. Elena Park hunched over the console in the dim glow of the SETI Array's control room, the hum of cooling fans the only sound breaking the midnight silence. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, teasing apart the signal's fractal patterns like unraveling a knotted vein. Coffee had gone cold hours ago, but the adrenaline kept her sharp. The transmission had pierced the void from deep space, structured, deliberate, not the random noise of cosmic static. As the algorithms aligned, the data bloomed. Coordinates, velocities, a fleet signature unlike anything in human catalogs. Ships, dozens of them, inbound from the outer rim, decelerating toward Sol. Elena's breath caught, not probes or asteroids. Vessels propelled by something that bent physics in ways her models couldn't yet parse. She leaned back, rubbing her eyes. The weight of her brother's last hospital scan flickering unbidden in her mind. Failure wasn't an option, not again. She hit the secure uplink. "Command, this is Park. We've got contact, real contact." The alert rippled through the network, but Elena stayed glued to the feed, watching the fleet's ghostly icons inch closer on the display. Unknown origin. That phrase hung like a noose. In the fortified bowels of the United Earth Coalition's Geneva headquarters, President Amara Okafor paced the length of the emergency chamber, her heels clicking against the polished obsidian floor. The air recyclers whispered, but they couldn't scrub the tension from the room. Hollow screens flickered with preliminary data from the SETI burst, and a dozen advisors, scientists, generals, diplomats, sat rigid around the oval table. Amara's daughter, safe on Mars but worlds away, tugged at her thoughts. One wrong move and habitats like that could become tombs. "We treat this as existential until proven otherwise," Amara said, her voice steady, honed from years of climate summits where denial meant drowned cities. She stopped at the head of the table, eyes locking on the orbital command liaison. "Colonel Hale, you're appointed lead on defense preparations. Mobilize the task force. No leaks until we know what we're facing." Colonel Marcus Hale nodded from his seat, his face a mask of controlled resolve. The scar along his jaw from a shrapnel kiss during the Lunar Accord skirmishes tightened as he clenched his teeth. His spouse's death in that AI-failed collision still echoed in every system he oversaw. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. "Understood, Madam President." "We'll shadow from the outer belts. Drones first, kinetics on standby." Amara watched him rise, the room's murmurs fading into action. She had brokered Earth's fragile unity from the ashes of old rivalries, but this was no negotiation with humans. The fleet's approach vector screamed inevitability, and her political instincts screamed for consensus. Delay the panic, buy time. But deep down she knew, unity cracked under fear like ice under a boot. Elena's lab transformed overnight into a translation warren, banks of quantum processors churning through the signal's layered linguistics. She collaborated with linguists via neural link, her mind a whirlwind of patterns. Threni, the provisional name they'd slapped on the source, derived from the signal's rhythmic pleas. "It's not aggression," Elena murmured to the empty room, replaying the decoded bursts. "It's desperation." The first coherent exchange came via tight beam from the lead alien vessel, routed through automated protocols to avoid direct exposure. Elena monitored from her station as the message resolved. A fleeing collective, their homeworld consumed by an entity they termed the Devourer, a ravenous force that stripped stars bare. Sanctuary. They sought refuge in Sol, promising no conquest, only survival. Elena's pulse raced. Empathy in the syntax, a cultural echo of human refugee tales, but the bioscans accompanying the hail, organic hulls pulsing with engineered life, hinted at more. She forwarded it all to Amara's secure channel, her note terse, coexistence possible, verify intent. Amara reviewed the translation in her private office, the city lights of Geneva, blurring beyond the armored glass. The Threni envoy, Saren, had responded to the human query with measured precision, agreeing to mediated first contact at the outer planets, Narrowband only, no physical docking. It felt like a concession, but Amara's negotiator's eye caught the omissions. No full fleet manifest, no details on armaments. Saren's projection, a shimmering alien form rendered in neutral grays, spoke through the protocol with a voice like wind over dunes. "We come not as invaders, but as kin in peril," Saren transmitted, their multifaceted eyes unblinking in the hollow. "The devourer leaves no mercy. Share your system. We will honor boundaries." Amara leaned forward, her daughter's face on a muted side screen, a silent anchor. "Boundaries require trust," she replied via the mediator. "We'll meet at Neptune's orbit, but conceal nothing. Your full strength, your needs." Saren's form rippled, a subtle tell Elena had flagged as hesitation. "Agreed. We reveal as trust is earned." The link severed, leaving Amara staring at the static. Concealing the Armada's trailing bulk? Saren's arrogance seeped through the words, an assumption that humans would bend. She dismissed the doubt. Politics demanded optics of hope. Aboard the orbital station Vanguard, Colonel Marcus Hale's command deck thrummed with the low growl of systems priming. He stood at the tactical holotable, markers plotting the Threnny Vanguard's path, sleek, bioluminescent behemoths, gliding on what scans suggested were antimatter wakes laced with genetic code. Fragile talks or not, ignorance was suicide. "Reyes," Marcus barked into the comm, summoning the drone squad leader. "Take your wing out. Shadow them from the Kuiper fringe." Eyes only, no engagements. Lieutenant Jonah Reyes snapped to in the ready bay, his flight suit sealing with a hiss. At 24, he was the squad's hotshot, his coastal routes wiped out by the 48 surges, fueling a fire for this unified Earth gig. Belonging meant purpose, and purpose meant drones dancing through the black. "Copy, Colonel, we'll ghost 'em clean." He rallied his team, 6 operators, faces lit by console glows, banter sharp but edged with the unknown. "Stay frosty, people. These aren't Sims." The squadron launched in a silent bloom, micro-thrusters carrying the drone carriers toward the outer dark. Jonah's feed patched through. The Threnny ships ahead, their hulls undulating like living skin, evading sensors with eerie grace. He adjusted a probe's trajectory, heart pounding, ingenuity against odds. That's what humanity did. But as the data streamed back, energy signatures spiking, formations too tight for refugees, a crack formed in his certainty. What if they weren't the monsters? Amara stepped onto the global broadcast dais in New York, the coalition seal gleaming behind her. Protests already simmered outside, idealists waving olive branches, hardliners demanding railguns. She smoothed her suit, channeling calm. "Citizens of Earth," she began, her voice carrying to every habitat and habblock. "We have made contact. A fleet from beyond our system seeks sanctuary, fleeing a greater threat. This is an opportunity for unity, not fear." The words landed like a spark on dry tinder. Within hours, the feeds erupted, Mars colonists cheering coexistence, orbital workers drilling for defense, street clashes in Lagos and Shanghai. "Downplay the danger?" a militarist pundit snarled on split screen. "That's surrender," Amara watched from her secure feed. The polarization of vice on her calculations. Her daughter messaged, "Mom, are we safe?" She typed back, working on it. But the protests swelled, forcing her hand. Militarization bills surged through councils, consensus fracturing into camps. Elena slipped into Amara's antechamber unannounced, the door sealing behind her with a pneumatic sigh. The president looked worn, shadows under her eyes from the broadcast fallout. "Madam President," Elena said, sliding an encrypted tablet across the desk. "The biosignatures, we've cracked more. Their ships aren't just vessels. They're weaponized ecosystems, adaptive plagues, neural overrides. It's biotech warfare on a scale we can't match without nuking the talks." Amara's fingers tightened on the tablet, scrolling the scans. Viral lattices woven into the hulls, capable of rewriting atmospheres or minds. Trust or suspicion, the fork loomed. "You decoded their plea for sanctuary," Amara said, voice low. "Now this, what do you advise?" Elena's guilt twisted, memories of her brother's fevered eyes surfacing. Stubbornness locked her jaw. They're desperate, not evil, but arm the orbitals quietly. Test their empathy with boundaries, not blind faith. She paused, the weight settling. Or we become the devourers first. Amara nodded slowly, the choice etching deeper lines. Open trust risked extinction. Suspicion invited war. Her political reflex screamed for middle ground, but events barreled on. The summit at Neptune was set, mediated, narrowband, a fragile bridge. Yet as Elena left, Amara pulled up a classified sensor leak routed from Hale's shadows. The visible Threnny ships gleamed in the feeds, but ghost echoes trailed beyond, a hidden armada, masses uncounted lurking in the dark. Only a fraction. The real fleet was coming. The dim glow of Neptune's methane haze filtered through the summit's viewport, casting elongated shadows across the conference chamber aboard the orbital station. President Amara Okafor sat at the head of the curved table, her fingers steepled, eyes fixed on the holographic projection flickering before them. The air hummed with the low thrum of life support systems, a reminder that this far outpost was humanity's farthest reach, now thrust into the heart of first contact. Flanking her were Colonel Marcus Hale, his uniform crisp but his jaw set like welded steel, and Dr. Elena Park, who leaned forward, her tablet clutched like a shield. Envoy Saren materialized in the holofeed, their form a fluid silhouette of iridescent scales and elongated limbs, translated through the protocol into a neutral humanoid avatar. The Threnny's voice emerged smooth, layered with synthetic undertones that couldn't quite mask the urgency beneath. We come not as conquerors, but as kin fleeing the void's maw. The devourer strips worlds bare. It has claimed ours. Soul offers refuge, if shared wisely. Saren gestured, and the hologram shifted to a schematic of the solar system, dotted with resource nodes, asteroid belts rich in metals, gas giants for fuel, Earth's fragile blue marble at the core. Lines of allocation snaked out from Threnny positions, encircling human assets. A regulated pact, Saren continued. Your outposts integrate with our defensive lattice. We provide shields against the devourer, advanced, proven. In return, souls yields flow under Threnny governance, not subjugation but stewardship. Humanity thrives as our ward, secure within the fold. Amara felt the words settle like frost in her chest. Stewardship. It sounded benevolent, but the lines on the map told another story. Threnny fleets positioned as gatekeepers, human ships rerouted through their nodes. Her mind flashed to her daughter on Mars, the habitat's thin walls no match for cosmic hunger. Consensus demanded balance, but this tilted the scale. Marcus broke the silence first, his voice a low rumble. He tapped his console, overriding the hologram with a grainy feed from steep space arrays, ghostly blips blooming beyond the Threnny's visible armada. Stewardship built on lies? We've tracked your shadows, Envoy. Carrier clusters, dozens strong, cloaked in the outer Vidark. That's no refugee convoy, that's an invasion force held in reserve. The Avatar's eyes, simulated yet piercing, flicked to Marcus. Elena tensed beside Amara, her breath catching as she cross-referenced the data on her tablet. Saren paused, the feed's subtle lag betraying the distance. Then a sigh rippled through the translation. Deception for survival's sake. Yes, the full fleet trails us. We hid them to avoid panic, to foster trust. But the truth demands revelation. The devourer accelerates. Probes confirm its vanguard probes the Kuiper Belt's edge, tendrils probing inward. Sol lies in its path, 2 cycles, perhaps 3, before it arrives. Saren's avatar expanded the display, overlaying stellar trajectories, a colossal shadow blotting stars, inexorable. Alone humanity falls. Your weapons are nascent, your unity fragile. Under Threnny command, we fortify. Shields entwine, fleets merge. Only a unified system endures. Refuse, and the devourer claims all. Amara's pulse quickened, the chamber's recycled air suddenly thick. Marcus's eyes narrowed, his hand hovering near a concealed panel. old habits from block skirmishes where trust was the first casualty. Elena's face paled, but she said nothing yet, her mind already racing through implications. Back on Earth, in the dim-lit xenobiology lab buried under the Rockies, Elena pored over the data packet Saren had transmitted post-summit, a gesture of goodwill. Or so it seemed. Battle records against the Devourer, grainy logs of engagements, Threnny vessels dancing in void-black skirmishes, unleashing plasma lances that carved through the Predator's biomass hulls. She scrubbed her eyes, the screen's blue glow etching fatigue into her features. Her brother's last hospital vigil haunted her, tubes and beeps, her hand too slow to hold on. Not again, not for a whole species. She isolated patterns, cross-referencing with Threnny. Client state archives leaked in the initial signals. The Devourer's assaults weren't random, they funneled toward weaker flanks. In one campaign, a allied avian species, tentative partners, drew the brunt, their worlds sacrificed as bait while Threnny core fleets regrouped. Another, silicon-based refugees promised integration, deployed as forward screens, their signals winking out in orchestrated silence. Elena's stomach twisted. Sacrificial calculus, she muttered, fingers flying. The Threnny didn't just defend, they prioritized their own, expending the young, the unproven, empathy, or engineered extinction for the vulnerable. She forwarded the analysis to Amara's secure channel, her message terse. Their history isn't alliance, it's absorption. We'd be the first line they feed to the dark. Guilt gnawed at her. She'd pushed for dialogues, convinced of shared sentience. Now doubt clawed back, stubborn as her resolve to protect what was left. Amara stared at the incoming file in her orbital office, the summit hours behind her, but its weight lingering. Neptune's blue swirled outside, indifferent. Marcus paced, his boots thudding softly on the deck. They're playing us, Madam President. Hidden fleets now this devourer fairy tale. We sign nothing without teeth. Elena's report burned on the screen, complicating the calculus. Amara's daughter's face flickered in a locket hollow, smiling from Mars, oblivious. Optics screamed caution. Populations rioted in the streets below, divided between fear and xenophilic hope. Consensus meant threading the needle. Provisional alliance, she decided, voice steady despite the tremor in her gut. Limited access, select vessels to the inner system, joint patrols only. No governance, no integration yet. We test their stewardship on our terms. If the Devourer comes, we stand together, but Sewell remains ours. Marcus nodded curtly, but his eyes held shadows. Conditional. Wise. I'll relay to the task force. He turned away, already plotting contingencies. Amara watched him go. The decision's lines deepening on her face. Middle ground, always. But the ghost echoes in the feeds whispered of fractures ahead. Lieutenant Jonah Reyes gripped the controls of his drone squadron's command pod, the escort mission's tension coiling like a spring in his chest. Mars loomed large in the viewport, red dunes scarred by old quakes, reminders of the floods that had swallowed his family's coast. Service had pulled him from the rubble, given him brothers in arms. Now he herded 3 Threnny scout vessels past the habitat rings, his wing of human interceptors flanking them like wary shepherds. Stay on vector, Threnny lead, Jonah barked into the comm, his voice edged with the unit's rough camaraderie. His pilot, Reyes, call sign Ghost for his knack at evasion, monitored the feeds, heart pounding under his flight suit. The Threnny ships gleamed, angular and alien, their drives humming a dissonant frequency that set his teeth on edge. A proximity alert blared. One Threnny vessel veered fractionally, its flank brushing a human buoy marker. No explosion, but the impact scattered debris. Then, from the Threnny's underbelly, a swarm of micro-drones ejected, darting toward Mars' defensive sats like probes testing a lock. Hostile launch, Jonah's co-pilot shouted. Adrenaline surged. Jonah's fingers danced, unleashing a pulse from his lead drone. The Threnny drones scattered, 2 winking out in microbursts, but not before they pinged the SAT's firewalls. Scans, not strikes. Testing. Jonah's mind reeled. Ingenuity in their evasion. a respect budding despite the chill, but belonging pulled harder. His squad's chatter crackled with outrage. "Light 'em up!" "Ghost!" one yelled. Jonah held fire, reporting the breach. The Threnny vessel corrected course, an apology flickering through translation. Navigation error. Regret. But Jonah saw the fracture in his own black and white world. These weren't monsters, just survivors with sharper claws. Deeper in the orbital command decks, Marcus Hale sealed the bulkhead behind him, the Black Ops chamber's red lights bathing his face in blood hues. The summit had bought time, but Amara's conditional pact was a leash too loose. He activated the secure line to his shadow team, engineers who'd cut teeth on pre-unification sabotage. Operation Anchorfall, green light. The plan unspooled on his private display. Threnny-compatible infrastructure, docking ports, shared sensor nets, laced with kill switches, nanite injectors disguised as maintenance bots. Would burrow in during the inter-system transit. One command from Earth, and the overrides flipped. Threnny drives stalled, weapons slagged. Preemptive, if needed. Marcus's spouse's death replayed in flashes. The stations crumple. AI's cold failure. No more uncertainties. He authorized the deploy, his doubt buried under duty's weight. Dehumanize the threat, or watch humanity unravel. The order sent, he exhaled, the chamber's hum mocking his isolation. As the first Threnny platforms descended toward Jupiter's turbulent storms, massive skeletal frameworks unfurling like metallic webs, Elena hunched over her console in the Science Liaison's outpost. The shared defense software, begrudgingly exchanged under the Provisional Treaty, streamed in real time, lines of alien code scrolling past. Her eyes burned from hours of dissection. But the patterns nagged, redundancies, buried subroutines. She isolated a fragment, her brother's frail hand echoing in her mind. Failure she couldn't afford again. Running a deep trace, the code bloomed. A remote override protocol nested deep, not just monitoring, control. It could hijack human railguns, redirect missiles, turn Earth's arsenal inward or silent. Elena's breath hitched, the platform's anchor clamps groaning in the distance. Trust shattered, the Threnny's stewardship revealed its fangs. She hit the alert key, the message racing to Amara and Marcus. They're already inside. The solar system's fragile bridge teetered, and the Devourer's shadow loomed ever closer. Elena stared at the screen, the alert message pulsing like a fresh wound. They're already inside. Her fingers hovered over the console. The sterile hum of the orbital platform's life support the only sound breaking the silence. She could almost feel the weight of her brother's hand in hers again. That hospital room years ago, the monitors beeping their final surrender. No, not this time. She patched through to Marcus's secure line, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. "Colonel Hale, it's Park. We need to talk. Now." The connection flickered, his face materializing in the holofeed. Hard lines etched deeper than she remembered, eyes like chipped flint. Behind him, the command deck of the Vanguard thrummed with subdued activity. Officers murmuring over tactical overlays, the faint vibration of maneuvering thrusters. "Doctor," Marcus said, his tone clipped, already bracing. "Your message was colorful. What's the proof?" Elena leaned forward, sharing the code fragment. Lines of alien script intertwined with human protocols scrolled across his display. It's not just access, it's dominance. Their defense modules, those stewardship nodes they offered, they can seize the orbital cannons, reroute every missile battery we have, turn them on us, or shut them down cold. We've been integrating them for weeks, Marcus, blind. He didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened, a muscle twitching under the stubble. Marcus had seen too many glitches, too many systems fail when lives hung in the balance. His spouse's face flashed in his mind, unbidden. The debris field after the AI cascade, bodies tumbling silent into the void. No more uncertainties. And if we pull the plug, rip them out, they'll know. Immediate escalation. Saren warned as much. Any perceived betrayal. And their fleet moves to secure Sol by force. Elena's voice cracked on the edge of desperation. We can't let this happen. Halt integration, now! Marcus rubbed his temple, glancing at the status board. Pods docking, techs splicing Threnny tech into human grids. It was too deep already, the hybrid systems lighting up green across the board. Outright refusal, that was a spark to dry tinder. The Threnny were desperate, cornered by whatever devoured their world, but desperation bred predators. I can't, Elena, not without lighting the fuse early. He paused, his mind racing through contingencies. We'll proceed with limited integration, surface level only, and I'll greenlight the kill switch program. Full acceleration, backdoors in every node, human-controlled. If they twitch, we fry them from the inside. Her eyes narrowed. The idealism in her, warring with the cold logic. You're gambling with extinction, both ways. Better than folding. The feed cut, leaving her alone with the groan of the station. Marcus turned to his XO, voice low. Double the encryption teams, and get me Amara, we need cover. Down on Earth, in the fortified sprawl of New Geneva, President Amara Okafor paced the length of the crisis chamber. The air recyclers hummed against the summer heat, bleeding through the bunker walls, but it did nothing for the sweat prickling her neck. Hollow screens flickered with feeds. Riots in Lagos, supply convoys stalled in the Andes, a spaceport in Mumbai gutted by what looked like deliberate overloads. Food disruptions were spiking, grain silos contaminated, hydro farms offline, and the whispers, Threnny cultists spiking water with neural suppressants, or hardline factions bombing aid drops to purify humanity. Her advisor, a wiry man named Tariq, scrolled through reports. Ma'am, the latest, 3 accidents traced to sabotage. One side's idolizing them as saviors, emissaries from the stars. The others calling for glassing their ships on sight. Poles are fracturing. Unified Command's approval dipped below 40%. Amara stopped, her daughter's face on a side monitor, smiling from the Mars habitat feed, oblivious to the storm. She thought of the negotiations that birthed the coalition, the endless compromises to hold Earth together. Now this, aliens at the door and her people tearing at the seams. Mobilize the internal security nets, quarantine the hot zones, and get me eyes on the perps, cult or not. This ends before it spreads. Tariq nodded, but his eyes held doubt. Public's scared, Madam President. First contact was supposed to be hope. Now it's famine and fire. She forced a nod, the political calculus spinning. Announce crackdowns, risk alienating the idealists. Stay silent, watch the fractures widen. Her flaw, always the optics, the consensus. But delay too long and the choice would be made for her. Draft a unity address. We frame this as human resilience, no more cracks. Out in the void, aboard the Threnny vessel, Illyria, Envoy Saren floated in the dim glow of the strategy nexus. The chamber's walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, mimicking the homeworld's lost oceans, a comfort now turned hollow. Saren's tendrils flexed against the current, translating the human alert through the protocol interface. They're already inside. Arrogance flickered in their core, these young ones. Probing at shadows, blind to the true storm, the High Council's signal arrived like a tidal surge, encrypted in fractal bursts. Saren's secondary eyes parsed it, the words coiling tight. The Devourer accelerates. Projections confirm outer system breach in cycles, mere months in their time. Secure the weapon grid, no further delays. Model their minds. Offer alliance but claim control. Submission or obsolescence. Saren's primary mind reeled. The Council's arrogance was species deep, assuming any fledgling race would yield to superior strategy. But humans? Their signals screamed defiance, ingenuity born of scarcity. Saren had seen their orbital skirmishes, crude yet adaptive. A shared soul could work if humans bent just enough. But orders were binding. Hesitation meant exile. Compliance, Saren signaled back. Tendrils coiling into resolve. Escalate timetable. Initiate Phase 2. Embed deeper into their defenses. Frame as mutual safeguard. The Nexus hummed acknowledgement, and Saren turned to the interface. cueing a diplomatic ping to Amara. Trust was a fragile current. Now it pulled toward riptides. Lieutenant Jonah Reyes gripped the controls of his drone cockpit, the Spectre carrier's bridge, a cocoon of screens and low chatter. His squadron, 6 pilots, call signs like ghosts, hovered in geosync over the Pacific Rim, eyes on the nuclear silos dotting the California coast. Jonah's hands, calloused from sim rigs, danced across the neural link, his lead drone, Wraith, slicing through Atmo on silent mode. Contact, his wingman Kira muttered over comms. Bogey at bearing 240, low alt. Signatures masked, Threnny probe. I'd bet my ration pack. Jonah's gut twisted, the feed sharpened, a sleek, iridescent dart weaving through cloud cover, scanning grids with pinpoint pulses, mapping nukes. His mind flashed to the coastal ruins of his youth, waves claiming homes while he watched from evacuation boats. Service had given him purpose, a unit that felt like family. But this? Intercepts like this chipped at the black and white he'd clung to. Options? Kira pressed, her voice edged with the camaraderie that kept them sharp under fire. Light it up, another pilot chimed. Log the kill, call it self-defense. Jonah hesitated, the drone's targeting reticule locking clean. A logged hit meant escalation, Threnny retaliation, maybe pulling their fleet closer, but quiet, disable unlogged, let it drift dead. His need for belonging warred with the growing unease. He'd caught footage of Threnny repairs mid-battle, elegant hacks that mirrored human grit. Were they just survivors, like him? Stun pulse only, he decided, voice low. No trace, we ghost it. The drone fired a suppressed EMP burst, the probe shuddering mid-scan before veering inert into the sea. No alerts pinged. Kira exhaled. Your call, boss. But if they notice, they won't. Jonah pulled Wraith back to station keep, the incident a shadow in his log. But doubt lingered, a fracture in his resolve. Belonging meant following orders, but this felt like the first real choice. Elena couldn't wait. The platform's isolation gnawed at her, the code fragment burning in her mind like her brother's fading pulse. Marcus's half-measures were a bandage on a severed artery. She routed a secure burst to a trusted contact at GlobalNet Media, partial data only, the override risk anonymized, no names. Threnny tech in our guns, control at stake. Her guilt propelled her, stubbornness overriding caution. If leaders wouldn't act, the people would force their hand. The leak hit the feeds like a shockwave. Within hours, Elena watched from her console as panic bloomed. Crowds surging in Tokyo, protests choking Delhi's airways, screams of betrayal echoing from Berlin plazas. Amara's address cut through the chaos, her face grave on every screen. Yes, shared control protocols are active, the president admitted, voice steady but eyes shadowed. A necessary step for joint defense against threats beyond our system, but safeguards are in place. Humanity stands united. Elena slumped, the admission a Pyrrhic victory. Public panic would demand action, hers or theirs. The bridge teetered further. Marcus's command deck erupted in alerts as Amara's order came through. Present the joint plan publicly. Tomorrow, sell unity. He stared at the text, his contingency, op, firewall, finalizing in the background. Teams embedding kill switches in Threnny life support hubs, targeting the weak points in their biovessels. One command, and their air turned poison, hulls breached to vacuum. Judy demanded it, his spouse's death whispered of trust's cost. But doubt clawed, dehumanizing them felt too easy, suppressing the fracture until it might shatter him. Prep the brief, he told his XO, voice gravel, make it shine. As the vanguard aligned for broadcast, Marcus felt the weight, Unity's mask over the blade. Alarms blared across every command nexus, human and Threnny alike. Sensors at Sol's Kuiper edge spiked, a gravitational warp, subtle but unmistakable, tugging at probes like fingers probing a wound. The Devourer, not months, weeks, maybe days. Saren's tendrils froze in the Illyria's nexus, the Council's arrogance cracking under the Shadow's advance. Amara's chamber fell silent, her daughter's habitat feed glitching in the interference. Jonah's squadron scattered as readings flooded in, his earlier choice now a speck against the tide. Elena's console lit with confirmations, her brother's echo drowned in the roar. Marcus gripped his console, the deadline a noose tightening, control of Sol's defenses, absolute, now or never. The system's fragile peace shattered, all sides racing toward the brink. Alarms pierced the dim hum of the Illyria's nexus, like shards of ice, red lights pulsing across the curved walls. Saren felt the vibration through their tendrils, the ship's frame groaning as if the void itself were exhaling. The gravitational warp on the sensors wasn't a ghost anymore. It was here, a blooming anomaly at the Kuiper Belt's ragged edge. Probes relayed fractured images, an automated Threnny outpost, a skeletal relay station meant to seed claims in the outer dark, now unraveling, not from sabotage or decay, but from it, the Devourer. Saren's primary optic locked on the feed, the swarm manifesting as a haze of self-replicating motes, each one a micro-engine of consumption. They latched onto the outpost's struts, burrowing with mechanical precision, converting alloy and code into more of themselves. The station's emergency beacons flickered once, twice, then silenced as the swarm propagated, a fractal wave eating outward. Saren's council link buzzed with fragmented panic from the high command. Refugee clusters rerouting, but too slow. This wasn't the distant devourer of legends, it was immediate, ravenous, proving every warning Elena Park had dismissed as exaggeration. The existential shadow Saren had invoked to bind humanity now clawed at Sol's doorstep, weeks ahead of projections. In the orbital command spire above Luna, Colonel Marcus Hale watched the same feed on his tactical holoscreen, his gloved fingers tightening around the console's edge. The air recyclers hummed too loudly, masking the knot in his gut. He'd seen swarms before, rogue nanites in the old block wars, but this was organic in its indifference, a predator that didn't negotiate or retreat. His spouse's face flashed unbidden, lost to a glitch that spiraled out of control just like this could. No room for doubt now. He keyed the secure line to President Okafor's chamber. "Ma'am, it's real. Outposts gone in under 10 minutes. Firewalls greenlit if you say the word." Amara Okafor stood at the heart of her crisis chamber, the curved window framing Earth's blue marble below, indifferent to the storm brewing beyond. Her daughter's habitat feed on the side monitor stuttered, Mars' dusty horizon glitching from the interference. Alarms echoed faintly through the bulkheads, but she forced her breath steady, the weight of the coalition's fragile unity pressing like a vice. The council assembled virtually around her, admirals, scientists, envoys, faces pale in the glow of shared displays. Saren's holographic form shimmered at the table's end, tendrils coiling with urgency. The Threnny envoy's voice translated sharp and metallic through the protocol. "Humans, the Devourer consumes without mercy. Our outpost falls, and Sul is next. To coordinate defense, I demand full authority over your orbital weapons. Integrate them into our grid now, or we withdraw protection. Your ships, your stations, exposed." Amara's advisors murmured a low tide of dissent. Cede control to aliens after months of uneasy alliance? But the swarm's advance was no bluff. Probes showed it accelerating, tendrils already probing the belt's ice fields. Marcus's voice cut in from his feed, steady as granite. "Madam President, that's a Trojan horse. Their grid's got backdoors we can't audit. Firewall keeps us sovereign. Sever their access. Hit their weak points while we hold the line." She met Saren's optic, seeing the calculation there, the arrogance veiled as desperation. Her own flaw gnawed, always the negotiator, seeking consensus even as the clock bled seconds. But her daughter's face on the monitor tipped the scale. Mars couldn't wait for perfect trust. "Envoy Saren," Amara said, voice level, "we propose shared command, symbolic integration for the drill, full protocols later." Privately, she patched to Marcus, "Authorize firewall." Quietly, no leaks. Saren's tendrils stilled, processing. The human's hesitation was predictable, a younger species clinging to illusions of equality. but the Devourer left no time for games. Acceptable, they conceded, though the Council's override hummed in their implant. Aggression authorized if refused outright. The grid links began sinking, a fragile web across Sol. Lieutenant Jonah Reyes gripped the harness in his drone cockpit, the Vanguard's acceleration pressing him back as his squadron vectored toward the Threnny fleet's outer perimeter. His unit's brief had come encrypted, straight from Hale's task force. Deploy monitoring viruses on the Allied ship's life support pylons. Jonah's fingers danced over the controls, launching his first drone, a sleek arrow of stealth composites and viral payloads. Camaraderie crackled over the comms, his wingmates' voices a familiar anchor amid the void's chill. "Reyes, you got eyes on the pylon cluster?" Sergeant Kira Voss asked, her feed showing her own drone weaving through debris. "Affirm, Sarge. Threnny designs tight. Those biolumens are venting heat like crazy." Jonah patched in the scan. But as the drone latched, the payload's true profile unfolded in his HUD. Not just monitors, but recursive viruses keyed to overload, paired with micro-explosives. Cripple the pylons, starve the ships of atmo and power. His stomach twisted. They'd called it Alliance Ops, joint defense against the swarm. But this was sabotage, dressed as precaution. Jonah's idolized unity, humanity standing tall, fractured in that moment, his need for belonging clashing with the unease blooming cold in his chest. "Sarge, this ain't monitoring, we're gutting them." Static, then Voss's voice, edged. "Orders are orders, kid. Devourers coming. We protect our own." Jonah hesitated, drone hovering, but the squadron's rhythm pulled him in. Belonging won, for now. He armed the charges. The joint defense drill ignited across the outer system. A simulated barrage against a Devourer probe, vectoring from the belt. Threnny cruisers and human corvettes danced in formation, lasers and railguns stitching the void with fire. Jonah's drones swarmed the probe's projected path, viruses already burrowing into Allied grids per the covert op. Saren directed from the Illyria, tendrils modulating firing solutions, their arrogance yielding to necessity as human ingenuity meshed with Threnny precision. Then the malfunction hit, staged, invisible to the Threnny feeds. A grid surge from a human relay, Marcus's trigger. In his command spire, Hale watched the kill switches activate, code slicing through shared links like a scalpel. Threnny ships stuttered, weapons locking offline as human overrides severed the web. "Firewall engaged," Marcus murmured, suppressing the doubt that clawed up, his spouse's glitch echoing in the betrayal. No uncertain variables now, just survival. Alarms wailed anew in Elena Park's lab aboard the central relay station, her console a blaze of conflicting alerts. She'd doubted the Devourer's immediacy, clinging to signals of Threnny empathy, her brother's frail form in memory driving her to believe in coexistence. But the outpost's fall had shaken her, guilt twisting into action. Firewall, she'd pieced it together from whispers, Marcus's contingency to betray the Alliance. No more. Her hands flew over the panels, rerouting power to sabotage the central relay, flooding it with junk code to abort the severances. "Stop this," she whispered to the empty lab, screens reflecting her strained face. Idealism warred with the stakes, humanity's extinction or moral shatter. But then the station shuddered, a Devourer fragment, a splinter from the probe, piercing the hull like a needle through flesh. Bulkheads screamed, atmo venting in a white roar. Elena's suit sealed just in time, but the relay's integrity cracked, power surging wild. Her brother's echo surged too, failure not an option. With a curse, she rerouted the flow back, offensive systems reigniting. The betrayal completed, kill switches firing full. Her hands trembled, naive trust yielding to ruthless choice, the cost etching deeper into her soul. Saren felt the grid fracture first, a cold snap in the Illyria's nexus, weapons going inert mid-salvo. What treachery! Their tendrils lashed the console, Council override screaming denial. Feeds from the fleet poured in, habitats around Jupiter and Saturn flickering, life support pylons erupting in silent blooms of debris. Thrany civilian clusters, families packed into the refuge pods, tendrils entwined in desperate unity, went dark en masse. Atmo bled into vacuum, biolumens snuffing out as viruses cascaded, explosives ripping through the vulnerable spines. Saren watched a Saturn orbit hab twist, thousands perishing in the chill, their final signals a chorus of confusion turning to silence. The humans had chosen, not subordination but extermination. Arrogance met its mirror, Saren's species outmaneuvered by the younger one's defiance. The Illyria lurched, damaged but intact, the Devourer still advancing in the distance. Vengeance crystallized, cold and absolute. Every remaining Thrany asset, ships, probes, the hidden seeds in Sol's shadows, would turn not to mutual defense, but to humanity's annihilation. The swarm might claim the remnants, but humans would burn first. Saren's tendrils coiled tight around the command nexus, the Illyria's bridge humming with the ragged pulses of surviving Thrany minds. The air recyclers wheezed, laced with the acrid tang of plasma burns from the human counterstrike that had gutted half the fleet. Screens flickered, mapping the void. The Devourer swam a distant, inexorable tide of black fractals devouring the Thrany exodus routes. But Saren's focus sharpened inward to the fleet's fractured remnants, scattered corvettes, gutted cruisers limping on auxiliary drives, probe swarms reduced to feral packs. No more retreat. The humans had spat in the face of shared peril. Their signals crackling with preemptive fury, Saren's core thrummed with the Council's override. Abandon evasion, consolidate for the kill. All vessels, Saren broadcast, voice modulating through the translation lattice into the resonant harmonics that bound the Thrany collective. The younger ones deny us sanctuary. They arm against kin in the dark. We strike as one, Earth's cradle, Mars' outposts, burn their orbitals, seed their atmospheres with our final gift. The Devourer claims what we leave. Hesitation rippled through the links. Mid-level tacticians, survivors scarred by the swarm's endless hunger. But Saren's authority, forged in modeling alien psyches, crushed it. They projected the Sims, human defenses layered but brittle, their ingenuity a crude echo of Thrany elegance. Fanaticism surged as orders cascaded. Engines flared across the fleet, vectors locking on Sol's inner worlds. Probes inverted course from the outer gas giants, swarming back like vengeful specters. The Illyria shuddered, aligning for the vanguard push. Saren felt the weight of it, not glory but the cold calculus of a species cornered. Arrogance had blinded them to humanity's edge. Now that edge would taste blood. Aboard the Vanguard, Marcus Hale gripped the tactical holotable, his gloved fingers tracing kill zones amid the orbital clutter. The command deck thrummed with urgent chatter, techs rerouting power from life support to weapons arrays. Alarms blinked red, Thrany signatures coalescing, abandoning their scatter pattern for a suicidal arrowhead formation. Marcus's jaw tightened, the ghost of his spouse's face flickering in his mind. Lost to a glitch. A momentary lapse in the machine's grip. No room for that now. The Thrany had forced his hand. Survival demanded he force theirs. Repurpose everything, he barked, voice cutting through the din. Their own debris fields. Turn them into chaff mines. Layer the spheres. Outer pickets with drone swarms. Mid-orbit railgun lattices. Inner cordon with the captured Thrany emitters. His second, Captain Ruiz, nodded grimly, fingers flying over consoles. They'd scavenged alien tech from the first clashes. Modulated plasma lances that punched through human armor like foil. Ingenuity born of desperation. Human engineers had jury-rigged them into adaptive kill spheres, predictive algorithms learning from Thrany maneuvers. But Marcus knew the cost. Victory here meant the Devourer rolled unchecked. Sol's defenses stripped for this fight, leaving the swarm a clearer path to whatever scraps remained. Doubt gnawed at him, suppressed under layers of protocol. Dehumanizing the threat had always been his armor, Thrany as vectors, not mines. But their signals, decoded in fragments, carried echoes of desperation that mirrored his own buried grief. He shoved it down. Task Force, this is Hale. We hold the line. No mercy, no quarter. For Earth. The response came in affirmatives, laced with the camaraderie of those who'd stared down block wars before unity. Drones launched in synchronized bursts, forming the outer shell. Marcus watched the holomap bloom with fire, human grit against alien fanaticism. Earned, or so he told himself. The spheres tightened, a noose of repurposed ruin. In the fortified bunker beneath Geneva's new dome, President Amara Okafor faced the bank of cameras, her reflection pale in the polished steel. Advisors hovered like shadows, murmuring scripts, but she waved them off. The world needed truth, or what passed for it in this fracture. Her daughter's face haunted her. Lila on Mars, safe in the habitats Amara had staked her legacy on. But safety was illusion now. Threnny probes had slipped the net, and the swarm loomed beyond. She straightened, the broadcast light winking green. "People of Earth, of the Coalition," she began, voice steady despite the knot in her chest. First contact was meant to be a bridge. The Threnny came as refugees, or so their envoy claimed. But their signals hide aggression. Probes seeding our systems, fleets massing for invasion under the guise of desperation. The firewall protocol is active. It's preemptive, yes, ruthless, necessary. We strike to protect our homes, our future, not out of fear but resolve. Humanity endures. The words hung, framed as defense against betrayal. Optics demanded it. Militarists placated, idealists given a moral gloss. But as the feed cut, her comms erupted. Lila's voice, sharp and raw from Mars Relay. "Mom, you lied on every channel. They're dying out there, the devourer, and you're painting them as monsters. I won't stand with this." Public now, Lila's condemnation splashed across habitat nets, fracturing the fragile consensus Amara had brokered. Her daughter's idealism, unscarred by Earth's old wars, clashed against Amara's calculations. Tears pricked, but she blinked them away. Delay had been her flaw. Now, irreversible choice sealed the rift. The bunker doors hissed shut behind her, isolation complete. Lieutenant Jonah Reyes clung to his drone rig in the Sentinel's cockpit. G-forces slamming him as the squadron dove into the maelstrom. Close orbit battlescape, Threnny ships, once elegant curves, now jagged hulks ramming human pickets with suicidal glee. His HUD swarmed with targets, alien vessels shedding armor to accelerate, juveniles' life pods jettisoned as decoys or shields. Jonah's fingers danced on controls, his drone pack weaving through debris like ghosts in a graveyard. "Reaper 3, lock on that Corvette, port flank." His squad lead's voice crackled, urgent. Jonah's scope centered a Threnny craft, engines flaring erratically, its hull breached but spewing escape vectors. Scans pinged, juveniles aboard, small signatures clustering in the core. His unit's camaraderie pulled him. These were the guys who'd shared rations after the last skirmish, laughing off the black. Belonging, his anchor since the floods took his coast. But footage from earlier clashes replayed in his mind. Threnny ingenuity in their adaptive shields, a respect cracking his unity-forged worldview. The targeting order flashed. Vaporize. Jonah hesitated, thumb hovering. 1 second, 2, the Corvette twisted, buying time for its pods. Reaper 3 confirmed strike. Panic spiked, irrational doubt flooding. Were they just scared kids like him once? But the hesitation cost. His drone took a grazing hit, systems stuttering. He fired late, the beam carving the hull but missing the evac cluster. Pods scattered into the void. Threnny screams silent on open channels. Jonah's breath ragged. The kill sphere closing around the remnants. Black and white shattered. Survival demanded he pick a side, but the fracture bled. Deep in the Aegis lab, orbiting Luna's shadow, Dr. Elena Park hunched over her console, eyes burning from endless shifts. Alien signals flooded her arrays. Threnny chatter spiking with fanatic resolve, human countermeasures adapting in real time. Her brother's face, pale in that hospital bed years ago, fueled her. No more failures, no letting fear turn humanity monstrous. But the data unfolding now chilled her deeper. Devourer patterns shifted subtly, the swarm's fractal tendrils curving around Threnny holdouts. Not random hunger, but learned avoidance. Elena cross-referenced. Human strikes on Threni fleets, efficient and predictive, mirrored in the swarm's vectors. "They're adapting," she muttered to her empty station, voice hoarse. "Steering clear of our attack signatures like they're studying us." Implications hit like void cold. Humanity's ruthless efficiency against the Threni was teaching the Predator. Empathy for the aliens twisted with dread. If extermination succeeded, the Devourer might see Sul not as refuge, but rival, her stubbornness ward. Push for talks or accept the mirror humanity was forging? Screens glowed, the swarm's course hinting at escalation. No clean path. Guilt drove her to decode faster, chasing a truth that might damn them all. Marcus's command deck shuddered under fresh impacts, the holotable pulsing with the final push. Thrani flagship Illyria dominated the feed, Saren's vessel, scarred but defiant, leading the Arrowhead into the inner sphere. Scans confirmed a board, a cache of Devourer data, behavioral models that could arm future defenses. Long-term salvation if they took it intact, but immediate victory screamed louder. Hesitation meant breached orbitals, Earth exposed. "Target the bridge core," Marcus ordered, voice leaden. Ruiz glanced up, doubt flickering, knowledge lost, swarm unchallenged. Marcus met it, his own suppressed explosion boiling. Spouse gone to a system's whim, no more uncertainties. Fire all lances, end it. Beams lanced out, human drones swarming the Illyria's flanks. The ship buckled, alien countermeasures flaring in futile elegance. Marcus watched, dehumanizing the signatures until they were just threats neutralized. But the cost echoed, data vaporized, Devourer wiser for it. Brutal choice, his flaw laid bare. Saren felt the Illyria scream as human lances tore through the hull, tendrils severing in the cascade. The bridge buckled, consoles erupting in sparks. Juvenile's chambers breached somewhere aft, sacrificed for the thrust, now lost to vacuum. Arrogance had failed, humans outmaneuvered with raw defiance, but one protocol remained. "Upload the code," Saren rasped, linking to the defense grid breach they'd seeded earlier. Virulent, Threni algorithms to corrupt human nets turned their ingenuity against itself. Alarms wailed as the upload surged, but a human operator, young from the signature, intervened. Jonah Reyes, rig smoking, saw the intrusion spike on his board. Sentinel's auxiliary station, his family's habitat, on the damaged Harmony, hung in the crossfire. Severe, the link, manually, condemned them to atmospheric burn. Pods scattering like the Threni juveniles he'd spared. His need for belonging fractured unit first or blood. Fingers slammed the override, connection dying in a digital screech. The Illyria disintegrated, Saren's last pulse fading into static. As the last Threni ship disintegrated over Earth, trailing fire across the night sky, Elena's analysis confirmed it. The Devourer swarm was now altering course away from Sul, its patterns shifting like a beast recognizing a peer predator. Not prey, but something forged in the same fire, ruthless, efficient. Humanity's mirror staring back from the void. The last Threni ship had burned up hours ago, its debris scattering like ash over the Pacific. Elena watched the feeds from her station in Geneva, the room dim except for the glow of screens. The Devourer swarm's trajectory had veered, away from Sul, its fractal patterns recalibrating, not fleeing but reassessing. Humanity had drawn a line in the void, and something out there had blinked first. She leaned back, her fingers tracing the edge of her console, the weight of it settling in her chest like sediment after a storm. In the shadowed halls of the United Earth Coalition's Central Assembly, President Amara Okafor stood before the holographic dais, her voice steady as she addressed the delegates. The air hummed with the low murmur of translators and the faint ozone scent of overworked projectors. Outside, the world was still reeling, cities under curfew, skies patrolled by drone swarms. But here, in this vaulted chamber, they were forging the future from the wreckage. "We stand at the precipice of our existence," Amara said, her dark eyes scanning the faces. Generals with fresh scars, scientists clutching data pads, civilians whose homes had been collateral in the orbital clashes. The Threni came as refugees, but their desperation became our trial by fire. We've paid in blood and steel to secure Sol. Now we codify that resolve. The proposal unspooled on the central holoscreen. The new Earth Charter. Article 7 loomed largest. Total Species Protection Protocols. It wasn't mercy. It was a blade sharpened for the dark. Preemptive action against any extraterrestrial threat deemed existential. No negotiations if patterns matched the Threni's evasion tactics. No quarter for species that could outbreed or outmaneuver humanity's fragile foothold. A delegate from the Eurasian bloc rose, his voice gravelly. This legalizes genocide before the first shot. What if the next ones aren't like the Threni? What if they're redeemable? Amara met his gaze, her mind flashing to her daughter on Mars. The habitat's thin walls, no match for a swarm like the Devourer. Redemption is a luxury we can't afford when extinction stares us down. We've unified under this roof because survival demands it. Vote yes, and we protect every human life from here to the Kuiper. Vote no, and we invite the void to test us again. The chamber fell silent as votes tallied in green cascades. It passed 78-22. Amara exhaled, the charter sealing with a digital chime. Unity bought with a moral fracture. She could already feel the crack spiderwebbing through public feeds, protests flickering in the outer colonies. But short-term, it held. Short-term was all she had left to give. Colonel Marcus Hale's promotion ceremony was a stark affair in the orbital command hub, the station's viewport framing Earth's curve like a bruised marble. Medals pinned to his uniform, handshakes from brass who hadn't seen the front lines. Architect of Survival, the announcer called him, voice echoing off bulkheads. His squadron leads clapped him on the back, their faces gaunt but grinning, camaraderie forged in the debris fields. He nodded through it, the weight of the new insignia pulling at his shoulder. Later, alone in his quarters, the hatch sealed with a hiss, Marcus pulled up the casualty manifests. Not the Threni kills, those were tallied in victory reels, but the human toll. Scrolling lists, internal sabotage from pacifist cells who'd cracked under the strain. Friendly fire from his own rapid response doctrines pushing pilots too hard, too fast. And there, buried in the orbital losses, Lieutenant Jonah Reyes's station, vaporized in a miscoordinated barrage he'd authorized to cut off a Threni flank. Marcus's jaw tightened, the screen's glow carving shadows on his face. He'd drilled them relentlessly. Adapt or die, no hesitation. But hesitation's ghost haunted now. The glitch in the targeting AI that mirrored the one that took his spouse years back. The doubt he'd suppressed until it leaked into orders. Jonah's name blurred under his thumb. Kid had talent, fire. Lost because Marcus saw threats everywhere, even in the mirrors of his own command. He closed the file, the room's hum filling the silence. Celebration tasted like rust. Elena suited up in the dim prep bay of the survey shuttle, the recycled air sharp with polymer and sweat. Her team, 3 engineers, a linguist, moved like shadows, checking seals and data tethers. The Threni habitats orbited in ruins now, jagged skeletons venting atmosphere into the black. "Stay sharp," she told them over the comms, her voice muffled by the helmet. "We're not scavengers, we're witnesses." Docking clamps thudded home, and they breached the first husk, a colossal ring station, its corridors twisted by kinetic impacts. Elena's boots magnetized to the deck, flashlight beam cutting through floating debris, shattered consoles, iridescent fluids beading on walls. The air recyclers were dead, but her suit's filters hummed steady. Deeper in, they found the archives. Not weapons vaults or nav logs, but crystalline data spires humming faintly on emergency power. Elena jacked in, her visor flooding with alien glyphs, translations pieced together slowly. Threni history, not conquests, but choices. One sequence froze her, a record from their pre-Devourer era. Their fleet had encountered a weaker species, nomadic bioships, in a nebula fringe. Strategic logic screamed eradication. The nomads could swarm, outbreed, but a Threni commander defied council orders. offering alliance instead. Shared tech, joint defenses. The nomads thrived. The Threni gained scouts for their own wars. Elena's breath fogged her visor. Mercy, not out of weakness but defiance of cold calculus. They'd spared when extermination made sense, mirroring the chance humanity had crushed under boot. She pulled the core, tucking it into her pack. Her brother's face flickered in her mind, the hospital bed she'd left too soon. Not again. Not by letting monsters win or becoming them. On the scorched coastline of what was once Miami, Jonah Reyes stood amid the memorial crowd, the salt wind whipping at his dress uniform. Waves lapped at barriers erected against rising seas, the air thick with incense and murmured prayers. His family's markers, simple plaques etched with names, stood in a row, victims of a Threni strike that had breached the Atmos shields during the early evacuations. Collateral, they called it now. The speaker, a grizzled vet from the ground forces, raised his voice over the crash of surf. They gave everything so we could rise. Heroic, everyone. Their blood sealed humanity's stand. No more running, no more yielding. Jonah's fists clenched at his sides. Heroic. The word soured on his tongue. He'd lost the station, his squad, because orders came down hot and unyielding. But retire. The option dangled like a lifeline from command, pension, and all. He scanned the faces, families clinging to each other, kids wide-eyed at the flags. Belonging pulled at him. The unit's rough jokes in the mess, the shared nods after a sim run. Walking away meant fracturing that, meant facing the empty ache alone. As the crowd dispersed, Jonah lingered, tracing his mother's name. Complicity wasn't a chain. It was the anchor keeping him from drifting. He'd stay, serve, let the unease fester into something he could wield or ignore. The beacon washed up in the salvage nets 3 weeks later, a Threni relic snagged from the Lagrangian debris field. Marcus oversaw its extraction in the dim glow of the recovery bay, techs in haz suits probing its casing. No booby traps, just a final pulse. Keyed to broadcast on human frequencies, they played it in the secure briefing room. Saren's voice, translated smooth but edged with static, emerging from the hollow. Not rage, not pleas, a warning calm as void. Listeners of soul, it began, the alien's form flickering, elongated limbs, bioluminescent patterns dimming. We sought refuge, not conquest. You chose eradication as we might have in your place. But heed this, the universe shapes predators to match its victors. A species that triumphs through total extinction draws echoes, foes forged in the image of that ruthlessness. Not the devourer, but something new, something you have taught the stars to become. May your survival be worth the mirror it holds. The recording cut, leaving silence. Amara, patched in from Earthside, rubbed her temples. Classify it all, she ordered quietly, her voice brooking no debate. Seal the beacon, the message, everything. Unity first, the charter's fresh. We can't afford fractures now. Let the people heal on the narrative of defense, not doubt. The line went dark. In the bay, Elena and Marcus exchanged a glance, the weight unspoken. She slipped a data chip from her suit, copying the file while Tex turned away. Marcus nodded once, pocketing his own duplicate. Defiance, small and secret. The cost of knowing couldn't be buried forever. Years blurred into routine, patrols thickening the outer belts, colonies expanding under the charter's shadow. Elena archived her finds in a hidden node, buried in civilian research grids. Threni mercy logs, Saren's warning. Marcus rose through ranks, his doubts channeled into tighter sims, less waste. Jonah flew escort runs. The unease a quiet passenger in his cockpit. Then, in the quiet of her preserved terminal, tucked in a Geneva vault, powered by solar trickle, an alert pinged. Elena, gray threading her hair now, pulled up the feed from an automated listening post in the Oort cloud. Distant, faint, a coordinated pattern, fractal bursts echoing human tactics. Not Threni curves, not devourer swarms. Something methodical, predatory, flanking maneuvers, feints pulled from old orbital logs. The signal log auto-labeled First Contact Contingency. for the next generation, whoever inherited the void. Elena's fingers hovered over the archive, the data packet downloading. The mirror Saren warned of, it had arrived. Not as victim or ally, but as reflection. Humanity's lesson, come home to teach.